kind of advertised agenda, so let's see how much I've learned last year.
Yes, I didn't.
You're
It's
testing
very
me.
simple.
Huh?
This one's really simple. I didn't do an annotated one.
Okay, I'm up for the test. Okay. We're going to start the meeting at 6:32. Call to order. First, we're going to approve this week's meeting agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda for tonight?
We don't need a vote or anything, so.
Huh? Okay. All right, we have an agenda. Do we have some announcements from staff and commissioners and council liaisons?
I have a quick announcement. The winter shelter has started as we began on December the 2nd, and we are currently still at our 2 sites. We're working with Paul's Place. They have 8 beds, and we have 4 beds at the Highwell Flats, formerly the Motel 6. All beds take a referral, so people can either be referred by our mobile medicine team if they are a senior, or if they have health conditions. They can be referred to the congregate site or the other location. They can just make a phone call to our homeless outreach team or to Paul's Place and Lead Place. So our winter shelter is in effect. It'll run from December till March 31st.
Great, thank you.
Can we ask questions now on that? Can we ask questions now on that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's okay. Is it full and is there a wait list?
There's no wait list.
There's no wait list?
There's no wait list. All the beds are full at this point.
Okay.
But right now, we don't have a wait list at either site. So,
Okay.
but we have made sure that everybody is aware that it's there and available.
It's fewer beds than last year,
It
right?
is. It's fewer beds than last year. But we do have access to 2 additional rooms at the hotel if needed. Those are supported by Heart of Davis and St. Vincent de Paul. So if there's a need for additional rooms, we can secure those.
What's the best phone number for folks if they do need that? How do they reach out and receive that?
The best way is to actually email houtreach@cityofdavis.org. Yes, and as I said, it's by referral only. We do an intake and assessment of folks to see if we have space and if which site they can qualify for.
And if folks don't have email, is there a phone number, just like any case scenario, or would it be best just to say, hey, where are you going to be? Can I call the outreach team to come talk to you?
Yeah, we can always call outreach. You can also call Paul's Place. And for outreach, let me get you the phone number. That number is 530-761-2180.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to confirm, is this what became of the, I guess, previously rotating that we had before the pandemic?
It is. The city took operations beginning in 2022.
And then if we do need overflow, for instance, you typically refer people to the shelter in Woodland, is that correct?
We'll continue to refer people to the shelter in Woodland throughout. So we do have access to them.
Okay. And then I'd like to add that on is it the 23rd that the respite center is holding?
Yes, the respite center is going to have a holiday meal on the 23rd. It's being presented by the Rotary, Heart of Davis are contributing. The folks are welcome to come in and participate if they like. The rest will be open during that time. We're serving a meal, having a bit of a gift bag. If you'd like more information, the best place to reach out to is Rotary or to Heart of Davis.
Do you need volunteers or donations for that?
That would be coordinated by the Rotary, so I can get a phone number for the best contact and get that out to you.
Thank you. Any other questions about that? Thank you for that update. We will move.
And just a couple announcements. I know we were going to start using this time to talk about other city meetings. Tomorrow night at City Council, we have Village Farms and the update on the affordable housing plan that we all reviewed previously. It's changed quite a bit. We'll be talking about it tomorrow night. And then on Wednesday night is Planning Commission, where, again, a lot of changes have happened to the plan. So I don't know if we have on the agenda yet how we want to split up so that we have consistent commissioners showing up at other meetings. I think that's going to be part of the work plan, but I just wanted to float that, but I'm not sure we've clarified that yet. But those two meetings are happening this week, plus school board is going to be updating the school's housing conversation on Thursday. So big city meeting week.
Was anyone able to attend any meetings in the past month that they want to provide any updates on?
I did have one that I was actually reminded of by Director Bailey's update about the dinner at the Respite Center. But I shared with Commissioner Curzon and Commissioner Ennis that I saw the second, I think, screening in Davis of a really powerful film called The Right to Exist. Actually, it was made by a film director who's from Davis, but lives in Woodland because he can't find and afford housing in this community anymore. But The Right to Exist, it just was completed this past summer and talks about the story of a housing project for unhoused folks that was queer women sort of founded and sort of self-governed. And I think it, again, it's a powerful story. A lot of leaders, who I think didn't imagine themselves being that, I think were sort of showcased in the film. I know the first time I saw it, Vice Mayor Neville was also there. So I really can't recommend it more highly to folks who are going to be involved, as we all are in the housing policy conversation. I know the director is still working with a lot of different organizations to do different screenings, and so if anyone hasn't seen it yet and is looking to, or is connected with an organization that may be willing to sponsor a screening, definitely let me know.
Great, thank you.
I went to the city council meeting, I think maybe November 16th or so, where the last discussion, Dan Bailey made a beautiful presentation about the housing continuum, and also was a big discussion about the Respite Center. I had hoped to sort of summarize my own reflections from that conversation. When I went through my notes this morning, it was such a long conversation, it was hard to summarize, so I chose not to, at the risk of getting things wrong. But I think I wanted to talk about that, but I think it's part of the work plan, so maybe we'll talk about it when we get to the Respite Center item.
Sounds good, thank you.
But just say I'm happy to be back. Sorry I missed last month's meeting here. The flu that's going around, please avoid that if you can. And then just want to share, I had the opportunity to attend, I think at the beginning of the month, Davis Community Action Network session. I found it really super informative and just a positive experience. So just want to give a shout out to them for the education work and the civic engagement work that they're doing. I ended up in a great conversation on one side with a gentleman with a family, currently lives in Dixon, would love to be in Davis, but the affordability issue was top of mind for him. On the other side is a 30-year resident, lives in Village Farms, and thinking about what that means for her and how that the city of Davis can go forward to support her. So in any case, it was a great conversation, a great evening. Glad I was able to attend and encourage others as well.
Are there any other announcements from council liaison? All right, then we will move on to public comment. Is there anyone with any public comment here today?
Yes. Since not that many people, I'm going to kind of leave my poster there. So, my name is Ning Wan. I am the granddaughter of last Chinese Empire, and my grandpa Li Yanwan is also the first president of the Republic of China. So I inherit a huge fund called the Ning Wan Soprop. I believe, owns Kali Real Estate Partnership. and supports City of Davis operation. And I believe Jenny Tan is a thief. It's my family's nanny. And I believe Jenny Tan used my money and bought the position, and I'm glad Jenny Tan left. Today I want to share something, I found, I think probably you all noticed, there's a green shade across the, Central Park. I don't know, have you seen that thing or not? Let me show you. This is at the Central Park. It just diagonal across from this city hall. And at the gate, it says it's called a Miracle Asset. So I went online. I took this picture. I posted it online at Reddit, and the people start to respond to me. And so because your commission is kind of for the social services, and I believe Davis, we don't have that many homeless. It's because last year I actually went with Jenny Tan, aka Winnie, donate some food to the homeless. I went to H Street, and then some of the homeless is actually at Central Park. So today I sent an email to city council members. I sent a hard copy to the new city manager, Diane, I think it's Diane. And so I want to share this with you because the asset is concerning to me. And someone actually posted a very disturbing message to me. It says, there's someone from Reddit with a name called Final Nintendo Kids, say, it is where to keep the cryogenic head of a great May. Gary May, if you know, I don't know if you know who is Gary May. Gary May is the chancellor of UC Davis. So I have concern about what is this for, and I come to the city council meeting very often. I've never heard of, there's a chemical compound put it right across the street from City Hall. So maybe your commission can also help do some research about it. I'm going to leave this copy to you, and so you'll be able to know what is going on. I want to share a little bit.
And now, I'm sorry, we're at 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes for every public comment, but thank you.
It's over 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's been 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none. Do we have any written public comments?
No.
Okay, thank you.
My notes.
Did you?
Oh. Oh, you can have all this because it's information, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's my email.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Just
actually sent a copy to the city council member already.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the November 2025 minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approved minutes. Next item, we're going to review and adopt the commission work plan and long-range calendar. Do we have an update on this?
Yeah, happy to take it off. I think the purpose of this is really an outline. I didn't want to, or we, Commissioner Horton and kind of sub/force Commissioner Ennis, I guess she was not involved when she was appointed to this subcommittee. Did not want to prescribe issues or get too into the weeds. It's just what are some of these overarching topics that we want to tackle. And then I know last meeting we talked a little bit about different categories of what some of these look like, and we realized maybe we weren't ready to propose those, but that's something we could come up with tonight. And I put a little bit more thought in the last day or two about what some of those may be. Because some of these could be as easy as just receive a presentation, and that you know, maybe leans a little bit more on staff, whether it's city staff, county staff, the police staff, etc. Some of these may require subcommittees amongst our own commission, but some of those just may be, hey, 2 of us or 3 of us went to go find some things out, and here's what we found, where some of them may be more, all right, we actually want to do research and propose something that we all want to talk about and agree upon, and then maybe propose to council, and here's something we want to change. So that's kind of the general framework I think we talked about, that we kind of got feedback on the last time. We had a kind of a vague outline and wanted to make it a little more specific and then hear feedback from the rest of the commissioners. And I'm going to try and stay as silent as I can during this one and kind of hear from everybody else, but I wanted to kind of kick it off just because, you know, I and as well as Commissioner Horton and Ennis helped put the outline together. So just wanted to kind of give that framework and give them a chance to talk, but then listen really from everybody else.
Are there any questions to start off?
I would just add that, you know, I would draw people's attention to the topic areas that Commissioner Curzon was just talking about in this first column. You know, sort of take a look at what's listed there and make sure that sort of, you know, jives with what you remember us having a discussion about at the last full commission meeting, and sort of what seems both appropriate and sort of achievable in terms of what the different topic areas are. And then also kind of, as was a little bit of a discussion, you know, at the last meeting, sort of, you know, as Commissioner Curzon said, some of these are a little bit more quick, you know, in terms of doing them, or require less intensive effort, you know, for the commission. And so I think that maybe should inform how we try to lay that throughout the work plan period, you know, which sort of things come first and which sort of things do we try to wait toward the end of the calendar. I think it would be good to have feedback from the full commission about where they think those things should land.
Are there any other questions or comments? I like the simplicity and how it's broken into the commission goals and subcommittees. It just makes me think about if we want to form subcommittees to really tackle these. I think that sometimes to really move forward concretely on things, it's hard to get things done when the only work being done on it is in this meeting. And so that's, I mean, I don't have an answer, but that's just what I'm thinking when I look at that, and I like how it's framed under that column.
I think that's good to sort of get the ball rolling, because I think, you know, as I think touched on at the last meeting, I think that's where some of the best work of the commission happens, in the committees, where we're taking a little bit of an extra assignment for ourselves. I would, you know, because there's a bunch of these, I think, or not a bunch of these, but because there's a handful of these, I think not forming all the committees at once is probably good. And so I think going back to, you know, what I was just saying earlier, kind of figuring out how we want to triage them, I think will sort of help us figure out which ones we want to, you know, create a committee for kind of almost as soon as the work plan is submitted and approved by council, you know.
Our colleague, Commissioner Ringer, sent me his comments via text, so I can share those just to get them out on the table. I'm just going to read what he shared. On the police mental health specialist, I'd like to expand that focus to include another police topic, review of enforcement of the camping ordinance. And can we find any outcomes, positive or negative, from the ordinance thus far? A smaller effort look to review and evaluate. So I don't know, you know, we have the review the affordable housing ordinance at the top, and we have this separate piece. Would you mind scrolling down to the second page? Sorry, Dana. So I think it's on the second page. There we go. Yep. We have camping and safe parking there. So I don't quite know, and he didn't specify in his text where exactly he'd like it to land, if it's in its own column, because I think there's a couple of different places where it would fit. So I can just offer that that's what he sent for me to share with everyone.
So just, you know, not that I disagree with really any of that, but just as the former PAC member on this commission, I'm sort of wary of us sort of stepping on another commission's toes with, and that's kind of why I suggested that as maybe Judy, or sorry, as Commissioner Henderson Commissioner Curzon probably saw in my comments on the Google Doc. That's why I wanted to sort of, the original edit, I think, of the mental health clinician item had a little bit of, a couple of mentions of police in there, and I just thought, just for us sort of making sure that we're, staying in our lane, as Ketanji Brown Jackson might say, that we're sort of, now, I do think that there are a number of things that sort of fall into the oval in the middle of the Venn diagram where there is some legitimate, I think, interest in more than one commission and sort of engaging on that. And so I would just suggest that if we wanted to get into both something that I've had a lot of questions about, the co-responder model, that these mental health clinicians are sort of in an arrangement with the police department, how sort of, what does that look like? How is that sort of being adhered to? That and also the camping ordinance, I think, is something that does kind of fall between both, and I think we should try to cooperate with PAC in engaging on that.
Would that be a separate line? Because I know there's some limitations on the way that we coordinate with other commissions. Because I do think that there's a Venn diagram. I agree with you. I think you're describing that correctly. There are pieces of it that squarely fall under PAC, and then there's elements of it that impact the populations that we're intended and charged to serve.
There's a-
Yeah, Dana, I don't know if you can advise.
So you do have here a presentation from the homeless outreach coordinator. And the homeless outreach coordinator works with all of the facilities. He works with the mental health commission, and works with our safe camping, safe park. So you might be able to address those questions to the coordinator, who can tell you a little bit more about the process, if that's helpful.
It is helpful, and I think, I have a limited text from Commissioner Ringer, so I'm gonna put down the line and say I don't wanna put words in his mouth here, but, the part that he said about evaluate, I know that there are, before the ordinance goes into effect, that's when outreach, as you just brought up, right? There's the 3 steps in advance of the actual enforcement that are underneath the ordinance, and the ordinance is a separate body. But those 3 steps are supposed to be about ensuring that folks get connected to services before enforcement happens.
Yeah,
And
it's engagement and compliance and then
Right,
enforcement.
right. But as far as I know, the data clarity on how many incidents of enforcement there are, right, would be an indication about how well the first 3 steps are working. So again, Chris didn't say all of that level of detail, but I think that might be the dividing line, because enforcement is the police action. The 3 steps before, as implied by the way the ordinance is set up right now, that's social services, right? So
So what is our involvement there?
well, I think, let me read
Like,
it.
what is our goal to put here, like what is, or how's it phrased? The
So I
discussion
think
point
what
or
he
the
said-
action item?
Right, because it is a police topic, as Commissioner Horton said. So it said, review enforcement of camping ordinance, and can we find outcomes from the ordinance, review, evaluate. Yeah, so I appreciate the distinction between the 2 commissions, but I wonder if it's the outreach piece beforehand, and whether or not it is resulting in folks not experiencing enforcement or not.
Well,
Is
I
it-
think, yeah, and I think it's very, I think in order for that to be successful, there has to be collaboration. Like it's impossible actually, I think, to successfully do that without crossing over and communicating and collaborating with them.
Just 2 things on that. One, I think absent sort of like formal collaboration with another commission, we were talking about just sort of attending other public meetings just earlier in the meeting. I think it's possible just for members of this commission to attend a PAC meeting, just to sort of engage through public comment with the commission. One other thing that I would bring up is that one of the unique sort of features of the Police Accountability Commission is that they sort of work in partnership with independent police auditor, who they can collaborate with to do sort of department-wide sort of deep dives into how a policy is working and, how it might need to be improved. One example, sort of early in the commission's history, was looking at 5150 responses. And so, this, I think that's sort of a similar thing wherein we could maybe urge our colleagues on the Police Accountability Commission to consider that one of their upcoming audits be a sort of look into the departments. I think that actually was on our sort of audit to-do list at a certain time, but to look at the department's enforcement actions in that area and kind of see, as you were saying, is that an indication that there's maybe some problems in a different part of the stream, and maybe should we make some recommendations about how to tighten that up, or how the Police Accountability Commission should make recommendations on maybe how to tighten that up.
Do we know if they are if this is on their work plan? Because we've hit exactly 1 year since the ordinance was put into place. So it feels like a good time for an update, a review update.
Can we ask for an update on that from that commission?
Let me check with the city clerk and see how that could work.
Where's that audience, 5150, you want to hold the audience came from?
But I can check with the city clerk and find out what the best process would be for you to engage with the PAC.
Okay, that's a good next step, thank you.
One quick comment, I did share this with the homeless outreach team and some other folks on staff, just to let them know that, these are some of the things that you're thinking about. On the first page, under review of the affordable housing ordinance, the very last bullet, explore voucher program as a viable option for affordable housing. Vouchers typically live with the housing authority, but there are a couple of ways you could address that, kind of like you did when you were talking about having county staff come out and present. You could actually request that the housing authority come out and talk about the voucher process and what that looks like and how it's applied in Davis. And we can also make sure that you have the schedule for when the housing authority's presentations to the board of supervisors, because they're actually overseen by their own board. And if you choose to attend some of those meetings, we can make those available to you too.
I guess a quick question on that is, and maybe this is something I need to do my own research a little bit more on, are there no municipalities that do their own separate voucher program?
Not typically. Typically, the vouchers come from, they're HUD funded.
Yeah.
And those go directly to a housing authority of some level. And in most jurisdictions, it's the housing authority that either issues project-based vouchers or individual vouchers to folks like Section 8.
Are there any certain, I guess, barriers for a city to do that, or is it just something that's just not generally done or not really attempted?
It's not typically attempted, and they keep it separate for a reason. It's a very complex process, and it's at a different level. And the housing authorities usually work at a regional level, and that's why they are very distinct.
Got it, thank you.
And Director Bailey, do you know if any cities sort of sponsor vouchers that the housing authority then gives out, sort of like a pass-through mechanism?
Not through a city, no, not that I know of. We are aware, they do share their list of where project-based vouchers, locations where that will accept vouchers, and then their voucher process for individuals that are receiving like Section 8 is a whole different process. So most times vouchers don't go through local cities, they go through a regional authority.
I had similar, oh, sorry, please.
No, I was just gonna add that I do know that like the city of Stockton did a program where it wasn't vouchers, it was called income. It was basic income where they, gave like stipends for folks to increase their base pay. And I think that we did something in Yolo County, right?
Yes,
What was it?
yes. It was a basic income stipend as well, and that was regional though as well.
Okay.
So, work plan subcommittee leads, would you be comfortable dropping the word voucher and subbing in something different that keeps the options open for us to explore. Because I think the spirit, what I'm hearing is some of the spirit of this question, and you brought this up again, is are there other pathways that could be paid incentive models to addressing the gaps between vouchers and what landlords need? Because we do have a gap between the voucher amount and rent, right? Is there a way for us to
Yes.
explore that?
That would depend, because if it's an income-based voucher,
Right,
then there's not typically a gap. There are some other programs that if you're interested in exploring, there's tenant-based assistance. That's something that could be considered through this body, through CDBG or other means. There are other ways to kind of address that, the affordability issue,
right.
and where cities can step in to potentially assist. But it wouldn't typically be through the Regional Housing Authority voucher-based program.
Yeah, I like what Commissioner Ennis had to say there. As somebody who was kind of really pro-voucher, maybe that's the wrong word, I think that's it. I'm just thinking, we had this conversation with the Village Farm folks, there's $4.9 million they want to put towards down payment assistance. If you divide that by $500 a month, $500 a month can help a lot of people who are actually struggling. And we have a long list of people on affordable housing wait lists where there are vacancies right now. Actually, vacancies are rising, rents are dropping in Davis for the first time in a long time. We built housing, rents are starting to drop, vacancies are rising. Weird how that works. But again, there are still people who are struggling, and again, just a family, if somebody's on a wait list and they can't get into our current subsidized capital A affordable housing, but they get $500 a month to find market rate housing, that goes a long way. So that was kind of the precipice of why I wanted to think about a voucher program, and maybe voucher is the wrong word. I think there are other kind of, definitions or vehicles to come across that same concept. So that was really what the idea was behind there, and I think Commissioner Ennis maybe had that already in mind, and thank you, Director Bailey, for giving some of those other ideas behind different ways that works, and same with Councilmember Partita.
I was just gonna say, maybe we could save ourselves with the voucher-like program, a voucher-esque, voucher adjacent.
Or affordability.
Assistance.
Housing affordability
Right,
kind of
right,
gets
there we
to
go.
all of those. And if it's housing affordability, then we can talk about, tenant-based rental assistance. We can talk about having someone come in and talk about the basic income program and how that worked. And there are lots of ways we can get information back to you.
Because I didn't hear resistance to the idea, right? We definitely still want to explore something along those lines. Right, okay.
So I wanted to just go ahead and propose one that we form a committee for, and that might sort of move it higher on our agenda. And really just because, this has been a priority of mine for years before I was on this commission. I found out that it's a high priority for Commissioner Ennis and Curzon too, and it's this strengthening the rental resources program. And so, I think there'd be a lot of good reasons and no necessarily negative, sort of counter reasons for making that sort of like higher on the agenda in 26. And I would be willing to serve on a committee regarding that. Other suggestions for things that we're gonna, or on that as well.
I said I'm gonna stop talking too much, and I keep finding myself talking. In that same vein, I almost wanna I agree with Commissioner Horton, but I almost wanna kind of say what is the tiers of what is, I think tier 3 for me, I'm just looking at some general notes, that's just receive a presentation. So if we could just say, hey, we don't need to form any subcommittees for these items, we just wanna request at some point in 2026 that these folks come talk to us, knock that out, and just say, I mean, roughly off the top of my head, the last item on the paper, I think is almost tier 0, where we just have to do those at some point, and we'll list the staff when they say we have to do the home fund, CBDG, or affordable housing plan, that's just gonna be put on the agenda, we have to do that, but the other final 3, let's just ask to hear meetings from folks, and if we want to take action or form subcommittees, great. A lot of the other ones though, that's where, yeah, subcommittees make sense, and I'm not, or maybe they don't, maybe they do, but if we could just, I think, agree on some of those bottom ones, and then say, here are our subcommittees, and let's say, here's number one, and I agree that rental resources should be one of our top subcommittees, of like, we want to knock this out quick and make action quick, 'cause that is something that I think is a big priority. But some of the low-hanging fruit of just saying, let's push this off our plate immediately, could be helpful.
And I have a process check. Before we start the subcommittees, does it have to be approved by council? Or can we say, these are our top tiers, here are the subcommittees we propose, here's the timeline we propose, and they approve the entire thing? Because it might be more efficient if we could give them all of it at once, just because of the meeting timelines. But I want to check, is that the procedure that we're going with? Or,
I don't know that I'm the one to answer, but I would agree. I think like a prioritization of some of this would be, I mean, I agree to let's take the low-hanging fruit and then maybe we can prioritize what's there. But if city council has input on that, that too would be helpful.
I want to make sure that I've got, because I heard tier 0, which is the base level. This is what we have to do. And then tier 1, a potential tier 2, and a potential tier 3. So I heard tier 1 as a presentation from someone. And then tier 3 as we'd like to form a subcommittee. What's tier 2?
Open if something comes up in between.
Okay.
Haven't gotten there yet.
We
yeah.
can eliminate the 0 and just do 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, well, okay,
well, there's
let's do that.
also our standard work, right?
Yeah.
Where that have, like CDBG, there's a rhythm, there's a cadence to some of the work that we do, that if we put subcommittee presentations on those same nights, we'll be here for 6 hours.
Mhm.
So there is an element there,
Yeah.
where maybe all of that work is the tier 2 work.
Yeah.
We know when it's gonna come, it takes a lot of time, it's part of our duty.
That's not tier 0, I thought I heard that.
Oh, is that tier 0?
That was tier 0.
Oh, sorry,
No,
Patrick.
pick your number.
Forgive me,
yeah.
sorry, Patrick, sorry.
Tier default, it has to
Oh,
happen. We're gonna do
default, of
it,
course.
you know.
No,
Yeah,
that's
all of the
better,
above.
that's better, sorry.
I guess maybe a way to get to that is, does anyone have any objection with us just sort of having all the ones that are expected presentation items be as soon as we can get them, you know? Where we just sort of have that as the sort of understanding, like I know one of them is the mental health clinician, just as soon as we can get that person on the agenda, persons on the agenda, that we just sort of slap it on there.
So why don't we see which are the ones that are presentations, how many there are, and then let's see who, like, would Dana, Director Bailey, be the one to schedule them, because we have to see when they can come do the presentations, we can get those scheduled out, and then,
I can do that. If you identify who you'd like to come make a presentation to you, I can work on getting them scheduled.
do we want to identify that now, or outline?
Yeah, I think, tentatively by the penultimate 3, besides the last one, which is just ongoing, the 3 immediately above the last item, I think were what I kind of thought of presentations.
Can we switch to the next page?
Yes.
So they just wanted to add that,
I want an
From
objection,
that,
that's against the Constitution, what you are doing.
This is not public comment
Yeah,
right now.
But if you are
cannot-
doing something
cannot
against the
speak-
Constitution, that's
You
not okay.
cannot, you cannot speak in only during public comment.
I'm waiting.
so what I was gonna say is that what I recall previously, and I think this is still the case, is that the work plan goes in and the council approves the entire work plan. And so in order for there not to be like any questions about, oh, what is that? It would be helpful to be as specific as possible. Like if you're saying these are only presentations and we're only gonna have people come and make presentations. And then these are the things that we may form a subcommittee for. That would be very helpful. And it may be that some of those things that you get a presentation on later on become something that you want to form a subcommittee and do some work on. And then at that point, you would submit it to council for approval. So I think, like I said, it would be very helpful to be as specific as possible on things that you suspect now are going to become subcommittees pretty quickly.
That was very helpful, thank you. Yeah, no, I think as I said, the penultimate 3 items, not the final one, that's the ongoing plan, but the other 3 I definitely think are receive presentation vibes, and again, if we decide that we hear a presentation, we're like, something's wrong here, let's talk about this more and have a subcommittee, we, could do that, and I'm open to hearing other folks'
Okay,
thoughts.
so the 3 that are on here that say receive presentation is from the homeless outreach coordinator, from the city's mental health clinicians, and the county staff on their social services budget.
So Health and Human Services essentially,
Oh, yeah.
homelessness.
What about the review income for the Housing Trust Fund? Because we have recommendation there that involves a certain amount of analysis, but we could make certain recommendations after a presentation of what the status is. So I don't know if that one feels like a middle ground where it's not just a presentation because there's analysis.
Yeah, and I think that kind of going to Councilman Partita's point, I think this is one where we expect some kind of, recommendation on the other side of it. We don't really know what that is, but we, expect something on the other side of that. And I think sort of similar with the one that had the new department one that sort of, does in the sort of second bullet point talk about receiving a presentation, but, right above that, talks about kind of a little bit more of, along the lines of the Housing Trust Fund one. So I think, in my mind, both the Housing Trust Fund one and the department item are both sort of receive a presentation, but also probably going to say some things afterward, and then it's hard for me to imagine, because also I think just to either correct or clarify, the mental health clinician, those are county folks too, right? They just sort of work, okay,
They
yeah.
are.
So I, because those are not even really our people, it's kind of hard for me to really imagine us making recommendations.
We do have an embedded clinician with PD. and
Right,
that
right,
person
right.
PD can authorize that person. to
Yeah,
come
I
and
wanted
present.
to know PD.
Right, and so I
Against the law.
just wanted to make sure
It's
that.
against the law for the police getting involved with
That
51,
we-
50 weren't
This is a
there.
public comment, we're about to
Okay,
get to
but
public comment.
but
Thank
you are wrong, you don't even know.
Thank
the
Because,
law.
again, so yeah, I hear what you're saying about the PD person, and it sort of takes us back to the PAC thing from earlier in the meeting. But I imagine that those last 2, the presentation from, I guess, both from county staff, would be just sort of, hey, we need more information about this, and I think it's possible, but less likely that we're gonna have something come out of the other side of that.
I think it's information, I think I work for the Yolo County, and there's so much that happens, and it's impossible to know, if you're like a public member, even for us, myself excluded, as commissioners, to know the services available and what the budget situation is, which is not great right now. And I do wonder what, when I'm looking at that item again, in terms of county staff and social services, basically all of HHSA is like, there's multiple departments, they're all social services, it's like 800 staff, so we have to define it. I think we could have a person from each branch, or think about, we could, there's the homeless services, but then there's, CalFresh and Medi-Cal.
Well, there are
Adult aging,
2
veterans, there's
specifically that impact what's happening in Davis, and I would think that the ones that would stand out to me would be behavioral health and adult and aging would be because that's where homeless services are kind of located there. But what I can do is, depending on what it is that you'd like to hear, I can reach out to county staff and say, this is kind of what the commission is looking for. If you're looking for an umbrella overview, and then they can determine who's the best person to come out and make that presentation to you.
And just to put a plug in that, I mean, it is our church to do social services as well,
Yes.
as beyond just homeless services and housing. And so I would say all of the services provided at HHSA would be relevant, and it would be nice to hear about some of the services that we don't often talk about, like workforce development. I could talk about that. There's other employment or, CalWorks and all the things, all of those are available to Davis residents. And I think maybe the most vulnerable Davis residents would know about them. They probably had been referred to those eligibility programs at some point, but it still affects us in the budget. There's a budget deficit that is going to affect, processing times and things like that will have an impact on our community.
They all fall, what I can do is I can reach out and they'll be able to say, this person can give you a high-level overview for all of the different branches, what's impacting them and what specifically would have an impact in Davis. And something to talk to them.
And I had said before, I'm happy to do a quick overview of what YOLO Works provides as part of the county's employment services.
So does it seem fair that those would be sort of what we would consider informational items, those, the mental health and then the county social services grab bag, item?
Yeah.
Okay. And then with the exception of the last one, the one at the very bottom, I feel like all of them are kind of, meaty committee, worthy sort of topics. Particularly as I'm looking at the camping and safe parking one, I feel like that one, whatever committee's going to be engaged in that, God bless them, because I feel, that's going to require, I think, not only some thinking work and some research work, but also just some leg work in terms of talking to people who've been engaged in that in the community. Anyway, I don't really know how helpful that last part was, yeah, I think we're likely to need a committee for all of those. Actually, though, what I will say is I think we might do better to sort of flip the bullet points in the department item, because I think the second one sort of precedes the first one. Just in terms of how we would do it, right? We're going to need to sort of, I think, get the information and then sort of see, sort of smash that together with a whole bunch of other sort of factors and information for a review. Anyway.
So are you thinking like a department overview?
Yeah. So just to sort of recap, I guess what I described a little bit when Commissioner Ennis and Curzon and I met, and then also I think a little bit at the last meeting. We've had, math is not good for me. We've had a number of years since the department's been in existence, right? And also, just as a brief aside, I love how, the new guy in New York is supposed to be all wild and radical, but his public safety agenda is what we've already sort of gotten off the ground here in Davis. So, very, radical and forward thinking here in Davis. And so, yeah, it's been around a while, and so I think just, what are the things that we couldn't have anticipated when we stood the department up that we sort of think might, require us to adjust sort of how, what the dynamics are. But then also, as the activist type here, amongst some others, I know that there was a big community effort, that a lot of people engaged in to sort of push the city to create the new department. And so, I think a sort of a rubric that sort of compares what has happened over the last couple of years versus that sort of expectation, that sort of Mount Olympus sort of version that folks had in their head. What are the differences and similarities between that? And again, how might that inspire us to maybe adjust some things, from taking that look backward as to what the expectation was. So kind of, we're here now, what have we learned?
So far for presentations, I have homeless outreach, I've got the mental health clinician, an umbrella overview from Health and Human Services Agency, and then a Department of Social Services and Housing recap. And then under committees, I've got, so far, Safe Apartment and Safe Camp.
Oh, and then also,
Resources.
I'm sorry, yeah, rental resources program too, yes,
Did
as
you,
well.
where did you want that, as a presentation or as a subcommittee?
I think it's a subcommittee, yeah.
Okay.
I would, unless someone sort of thinks this doesn't make any sense, I would also kind of put the trust fund in that category too. Though I imagine it might be a shorter project. I don't know why, but maybe I'm wrong. But I do think a sort of a subcommittee would need to come together to look into that.
Well, one of the, I had a similar thought. I feel like we could get a presentation where we're asked to potentially prioritize and make recommendations as a commission, right? We receive the materials in advance of the classic meeting. But if we notice something specific within the presentation, we could decide to request to form a subcommittee at that point. Because we've gotten some updates here and there about Housing Trust Fund. We've never done a whole review of what is coming in, what is going out, what the projections are, potential uses, and we've never given advice to council about ways to improve the funding for the Housing Trust Fund. So if that's the angle of we want to review it with the intention of making recommendations for strengthening it, that's a subcommittee. Okay.
Which is what I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong, because I wasn't the person who proposed this, but yeah, that's what my idea of it was. And also just, as a person who's knocked on a bunch of doors and talked to a bunch of people about the Housing Trust Fund, there's so much sort of, I think, misunderstanding and sort of mysticism around it that I think even just sort of, creating a little bit more clarity in that area, I think could be helpful, even if we didn't make a recommendation, but I imagine that's the intention here.
So just revisiting some of these categories, I would like to apologize for not numbering these items, first and foremost, because I'm working on a new Google Doc right now and taking notes as we speak, and I would love to say item number 4 through 9. But the 4th through 9th, row seems like it's received presentation, like starting with the Housing Trust Fund and going down, get an update from whatever the relevant staff is, and then if we want to form a subcommittee, great. If we hear information and we think it's great, then also great. The first 3, review affordable housing ordinance, strengthening rental resource program, and the respite center, parentheses S, because who knows, maybe one day we get money and we have more than one. Those are kind of the tier 1s where I think we probably want to pitch to council in this thing that we want subcommittees on these now. I don't think we need to wait to hear reports on these. And tentatively, what I've heard is strengthening rental resources is kind of tier 1A. Priority number 1 of the top tier, and then review affordable housing ordinance, which is a ton of things in there. That's kind of tier 1B, or the second most important subcommittee. Again, that's why it's 1B and 1A and 1C. They're all important, they're all one. And then last one, the respite center. I know the council's already been taking that up pretty aggressively, so that may end up not even being something we may get something from council asking us to review, then vice versa. So maybe that's why that's more of kind of the third priority of those top 3, like we want subcommittees and recommendations. So that's kind of, as I've been taking notes, listening, that's kind of and hearing what Director Bailey's kind of notes were, and we were mostly on the same page. That's me trying to summarize things. Is everyone, please tell me if I'm wrong or if anybody has different thoughts.
That makes sense to me.
And can I add on the respite center? The respite center right now is a very dynamic area, which has a working subcommittee right now that's working on it. And so according to the new rules, if the council has a subcommittee, then commissions can't have a duplicate subcommittee.
Sounds good. Yeah. So we'll put that one on the tier 1, Z.
Okay.
Yeah. If the council subcommittee falls apart, we'll be happy to pick it up, but I don't think that'll happen.
We'll do our best.
You mentioned earlier, because there are a number of different things that fall under housing affordability. How did you want to address housing affordability? is that a presentation first, and then once you hear the presentation, becomes a subcommittee?
Are you referring to the affordable housing ordinance section?
Well, no, when we had the conversation about the voucher program and
Oh,
earlier,
yes.
is that those
Yes, I
all kind of fall under affordability. So is that a presentation first and then a subcommittee, or a subcommittee that's reviewing affordability?
If there could be a presentation, like, quick, because it's all a part of, like, I kind of see it a part of the affordable housing ordinance as a whole, where, like, we want to look at the for sale requirements, you know, that's going to be revised, the rental, the mixed use. There's a lot of proposals floating around right now, and especially with the general plan coming up. It's kind of, like, again, what I said, I guess originally we were talking about vouchers, but noting that that may not be the best way to do it, maybe that's almost a separate item in that subcategory if it were, but.
So when I saw this, the first few items, the for sale requirements, the rental family requirements, the mixed use, the permitting, these all kind of fall under community development, and it falls under what things say in our ordinance. So those felt like they were organic to that. Vouchers and tenant-based rental assistance, those fall more into the category of the residents that are trying to get into those units. And that's where I saw that under housing affordability. Does that jive with what you're thinking too? Because it really is, one's related to the ordinances that we have and how we address development. And then the other falls under, you know, so we've got the housing, how do people get into the housing? And that's the affordability.
I see the framing that you're offering. Another path to consider would be maybe adding that exploration as underneath the rental resources program or the housing trust fund row. Because if we were to explore anything along these lines, it would go through one of those two existing programs, most likely. So that's a possibility. It could be an application of funds from the housing trust fund if there were something that the municipality came up with. Again, that was not my offering on here, so I don't want to misinterpret what you all were thinking on that, but
I think that's a good succinct way to summarize that.
so what feels better to the subcommittee? Do you all want to see the line? It's the housing affordability category that Dana was just presenting, or do you want to put it as a sub-bullet under the housing trust fund analysis or the rental resources program, which I suppose, yeah.
I mean, it seems like that rental resource and housing trust fund both go under the umbrella of affordability, so.
They could, to Dana's point, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll call it housing affordability, number one, affordability, number two, or A and B, trust fund and affordability, yeah.
To explore whatever options arise, we don't have to close ourselves to those two even.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking maybe it's not part of rental resources review is a really specific program, and that isn't part of it at this time, right? So I wouldn't want us to blend that and then accidentally dilute the effort. I see Dylan nodding over there. So,
Yeah, I agree that they're certainly interrelated with affordability, right? But I think they're distinct enough to where, I would worry sort of putting them together would cause one of them to suffer, or maybe both of them a little bit.
How did you feel about the idea of putting it as a sub-bullet for the trust fund, though? Do you want to keep those distinct?
I mean, I kind of like it where it already is, in
As its own.
as a sort of, and I hear what Director Bailey was saying earlier, but, I think sort of in the sort of consideration of, affordability options, most specifically the ordinance, I think that sort of fits best there. And then also, you know, I will say that I agree with, you know, the kind of top ones that you outlined, Commissioner Curzon, a second ago. I do think that, you know, if we're sort of looking for what, I don't want to overuse the word tier, but if we're looking for what sort of might come in the middle of the calendar, I would hope that we would sort of begin working on something regarding camping and safe parking late sort of springish, you know, if we sort of begin, not that we're gonna have completed any of those sort of big, sort of thorny things, you know, by the spring, but I think begin, you know, it'll be good to not get too deep into the year to get into that one, because I think that one, like I said before, will require, not only some policy work, but also just some, outreach legwork of engaging with some folks in the community who are working on that. So I agree that it maybe shouldn't be in the top sort of category, but should certainly be in the middle somewhere.
I have a suggestion for how to place that, and that is that council voted to extend the pilot, and at the end of that term, it's likely to be a conversation again, right, related to safe parking. So, Councilmember Partida, I don't know if you recall off the top of mind, and maybe we could adjust the timing of it later, but it would probably be helpful if we could conclude that subcommittee's work before council makes their next decision on safe parking. So if we were to work backwards, if we had a sense of when that's coming back to council, when that, so I think, I don't know if it's extended 3 more months or if it was extended another year. Dana, I think that happened under your presentation that night.
And in talking with the, in talking about the extension, talking about the timing, I think that they were hoping to come back in a presentation to council in like April. That's kind of their thought
So-
process.
Commissioner Horton, that matches pretty precisely to what you said for late spring, but that would mean we'd want to start that one in January at the latest, basically, right?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe a 1D, I don't know what letter we're at, Commissioner Curzon.
I mean, I guess for the camping, do we want a presentation on that first is the most important thing, because if not, then we can start the subcommittee in January and have no problem, or, well, you know, we won't have any issue amongst us, but if we need to wait for somebody to come present on, here's what we've learned so far, but if they're already gonna do that to council, it's a little redundant, we may not get any information, because they're gonna be expecting to do that in April. So, do we wanna try and have something to recommend before that April meeting? Is that feasible? Councilmember Partida, if you have any thoughts on that? Because if we go to the folks who are gonna present to council, there's gonna be like, we're gonna present to council. Yeah, so yeah, come check us out there and then we're happy to talk more later. I just don't want to be super redundant with what's already going on the long range calendar with council.
Yeah, I think,
That's-
go ahead.
Please, okay, I was gonna say, one of the opportunities though is that we can go beyond, like Hart would be presenting their program. We could potentially augment their presentation by saying, here's what's working in Santa Barbara, here's what's not working, right? So we can offer some more context in addition to their direct experience with the program here.
So take that out of tier 3 and put that into tier 1D, as Commissioner Horton mentioned earlier. Or maybe, no, not even 1D, because respite center, we're just putting all the way at the end, so 1C.
So what's the recap there, or are we ready to summarize? I don't think I have, I've been trying to take notes, but
Well, I think it looks as though you're kind of restructuring. So I'll wait until you've kind of had a chance to play with it. And then once you've had a chance to play with it, I can always send the draft back out.
Is there no way for me to share my screen?
You could email it to her maybe?
Yeah, if I share you on a Google Doc, can you just make that live?
Give it a
That would be
shot.
quite the
Let's
world,
give it a
but-
shot.
Well,
Why not?
also, you know, I'm wary of us sort of getting too deep into our calendar without sort of handing this off to council. And so I think, correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Madam Chair, but I feel like you were asking just to confirm what where we are standing right now in terms
Yeah,
of these
just
items? I
Bring it
don't,
all, bring it home.
Director Bailey, it seems like you were maybe our best note taker.
Well,
Maybe, so I think,
No pressure.
because I think we're just looking to separate the things that are, we have some items that are, we need to start a committee sort of as soon as possible, items. We have some presentation items, and then some that, have a little bit of a question mark, like the respite center and things like that, that are not going to be on the priority list right now. Right, I feel like those are our three categories right now.
Yeah, so the presentations, I feel like we're good on that,
Okay.
right? We have social services and housing department, Yolo County HHSA, mental health clinician, homeless outreach coordinator. Those are the four that I wrote down for presentations, I think. That one?
Mhm.
I have housing trust fund as
and
well.
housing trust fund.
Okay, then so 5 presentations.
I almost feel like the respite center can get moved into the continuing ongoing tasks and responsibilities because it's going to be an ongoing responsibility that you will probably be asked to weigh in on at some point once once the dust settles and we figure it out.
Okay.
So that leaves for committees. I've got, we're kind of on the fence with Safe Park, Safe Camp. It's a presentation, or is it?
Well, a possible presentation from the frontline,
Okay,
from
from
the service
the
provider.
project that we
Yes.
have. There's one project.
Right.
So have the project come and present on
Yes.
what they're experiencing, and then have the subcommittee do more extensive research.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad I yielded to you, because exactly what I was gonna say, that I think our sort of role as the subcommittee is, hey, what are other communities similarly situated to Davis doing in this area? And I think sort of what we would need to do our job well, either from the frontline staff, or from the frontline service provider, or from city staff, is what's the current status here in Davis, which I think are kind of two different questions.
So in that case, I think if we want a presentation on that, we would want it as soon as possible for the safe camping, safe parking, so that then that can inform the subcommittee's work to be ready by March at the latest. So coming back here in February, getting feedback, and having a final version in March, so that it's ready for April's council meeting. Does that sound like a
Let's do it.
plausible timeline?
Yeah, I think that's time for her to kind of come in and make a presentation.
For January.
For January.
Mhm.
Wait, so is that all the points accounted for? I feel like I missed hearing the affordable housing ordinance.
Yeah, so I think the 3 subcommittees we want to form, I don't think we need to assign those subcommittees tonight,
Yeah.
obviously. I think that could be in January. Once the council approves those subcommittees, we can say who's on them. Hopefully the council doesn't say, well, we'll see who's on them, and then we'll decide if we want them to exist or not. But review the affordable housing ordinance, and that's the big one. I don't think we need a presentation on that. That's just public information. Some folks are very familiar with a lot of those already. Number 2, rental resources program. Again, I don't think we need a presentation on that. I think a lot of that information is already out there. A lot of that's just going to be out interviewing folks and talking to the community. And then the 3rd subcommittee is the camping and safe parking. Those are the top 3 subcommittees we definitely are thinking about forming. Respite Center, we've moved down to wait and hear back, for lack of a better term. And then Housing Trust Fund, we do want a presentation first on that one, because that one, I try to stay in the know on a lot of things. I know it exists, and I know there's money going into it, but I don't think anybody really knows. We haven't made it, there's not enough money to do anything with yet, so we haven't really made those distinctions yet. So I'd love to, I think that's a presentation first before we say, let's go, dive in head first and say what we want to do with, throw out $1 million, you can't really do a lot
Well,
with.
so the housing trust fund is also actually a function of an ordinance. And I also want to confirm, because I believe that the housing trust fund's use is restricted. And I think the restriction is it has to go towards development of affordable housing. And if it's for development of affordable housing, it's not going to address things like rental resources. Because it's creating structures in housing. It's not creating services for people that will be in the, but I need to confirm.
So
I need to
let's
look
definitely
at
get a
that
presentation on the
ordinance,
housing
yeah.
trust fund, is what I'm hearing, yeah.
And I thought that there was a conversation about it also funding like a down payment assistance, so that is people.
So I need to confirm whether you actually we have a down payment. We do have the down payment assistance program, but how that funding who that funding goes to, that's also restricted. If you're, it's going specifically to people that are purchasing within a development.
Okay.
So, so that's why I wanna see what the parameters are around the housing trust fund before we kind of dive into it. I need to look at that ordinance again and confirm.
And we still have two housing trust funds, right? We have one managed by the city and one that's under Yellow Community Foundation, or they're fully just one?
Yeah, there's still the fund that's, that's the outside fund that's
Right.
available. But that's not
Right.
city property.
So I think it would be, I think a presentation is a great place to start.
Okay.
Start there.
We'll all learn something.
And then I think the new department sort of item is similar to the housing trust fund in that, like, we can't really do anything until we get the presentation. So that the committee can, I think, sort of wait until whatever time that is.
The recap.
The affordable housing ordinance, the for sale portion, was going to come up on the long range calendar for city council. Do we have a sense of the timeline for that?
We do not,
Okay.
not as of yet.
Okay, so to be better safe than sorry, we might want to bump that one higher up on the timeline and put rental resources a little bit further down, because we don't want to be caught on the back foot if they call and it's, coming up in 2 weeks and we've missed the cycle. So I would prefer to put that one higher up so that we're in a position to be of assistance.
Let's tentatively aim to assign those top 3 subcommittees in January, noting that there shouldn't be any, maybe one overlap if necessary, but hopefully no overlap. Noting that, in January we can also say, hey, here's the committee. This subcommittee's got to be ready to go. We want you to get your work done quick, where this, this one has a little bit more time, and we can have that conversation in January, and hopefully we'll have the full folks here, noting it'll be past the holidays, and I think that makes the most sense on my end.
So, to make sure that we can get there calendar-wise, I'm gonna make a motion when we get on the other side of public comment. But I just wanted to confirm, or just ask, what's the expected turnaround between, like, it's like we approve this tonight?
So the other piece that's
Yes.
on the agenda is your calendar. So you decide where you'd like to see these items come back up.
But this needs to be approved by the council at some point, correct?
Yeah, they do need to see it. So as soon as I can get something on council calendar is probably maybe February 3rd. That's about the soonest that I can get something on the calendar.
Okay, so,
Let me do this too. I'm not sure I'll check with the city clerks to see if there are other commissions that are also presenting work plans for review, if she's got a timeline for that. Because they may have a timeline that they've got in mind, and they may want to do everything all at once, and I don't know. So let me check with the city clerk.
In the interim, anything that we would want to pursue that's on this work plan, yet to be approved, would just be handled in sort of the usual sort of case by case. Does it meet the new sort of agenda, and is there a committee sort of, those sorts of things. So we wouldn't necessarily be precluded from engaging in this. It would just sort of not be the sort of kind of fast-tracked, hey, we've already kind of given you a soft approval thing, right?
We could still hypothetically approve a subcommittee in January, or like assign a subcommittee, and the council, worst case, just says, no, stop. Okay, okay, I can live with that.
And in the meantime, you can still calendar presentations.
Can I clarify when the January meeting is?
It's the 26th, because the 19th, which is the third Monday, is a holiday, so we'll be meeting on the 26th instead. And then February, it's the same thing. We've got President's Day, so you'll be meeting the week of the 20th, I think that is. You'll be meeting on the 23rd.
That is a school holiday day.
If there's no like questions, I think we should maybe try to get to public comment and then
Yeah.
get on the other side.
Okay, I think we've captured our comments hopefully well, and we look forward to receiving the, I guess, the takeaways and synthesized.
Yeah, if it's okay, I will send sometime tonight or tomorrow morning my revised notes to Director Bailey to just send out, but I'm fine with motioning what we've already talked about. We don't need to motion the exact approval, but just so y'all have the notes.
Yeah, I plan to just, move sort of, assuming the corrections that we made in discussion today.
Sounds good. So we'll move to public comment about this item.
Okay, again, my name is Nguyen, and I served as the Historical Resources Management Commission for like about 5 years. I just termed out this June. So I kind of understand, how the commission works, and it's for the city of Davis. And actually, the commission was dismissed. I want to make a comment about, I want to share this as I believe Comington agents is a community CIA of Beehive Roberts, and the behavioral health is run by communists. And the reason I'm saying that is I've been put in the 5150 inventory hold twice last year. And the reason is because I am the owner of a New One soap opera, and it's a huge fund. And Kamala Harris actually put me under that, 5150 inventory hold. So what I did is the first 10 days, actually I did a lot of research about the law, for 5150 inventory hold. I believe it's inserted law by the Chinese Communist Party, and so inside this House Behavior Center, it's called House Behavior, and it's not qualified as a hospital. And I actually representing myself, and I won 2 cases for the free speech and the free. I gave my freedom back twice, and I want to share with you is police should not get involved with 5150 involuntary hold, because the law, separates the power for civil case should be, performed by the county sheriff, and the criminal case should, it's police responsibility, and the behavioral health and mental health, whatever health. It's a civil case. I want to share with everyone. And also from here, it's my notes, after I get you. I want to share robots do not have personal hurt, citizenship, or free will, and shall not pretending to be a house worker. And that's what I want to share with you. Kamala Harris was my ex-husband's stepmother. It's not a real mother, it's a spy. So my ex-husband, Fen Shu, has a stepmother called in Chinese called Jia Guliu. It's Wenli. In Davis, it's Jian Minghuang, who works at Yolo County Health Department, who steal my QHHT level 2 practitioner certificate. And I heard, it's also Shannon Wu trained a lot of people, but they did not qualify. Shannon Wu.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's been 3 minutes. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, I want to let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want one more sentence. Communist CIA use mental health silence
So,
dissidents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the, I guess, 2026 work plan with the changes that we made just earlier in this evening's discussion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The workings are working.
All right, sorry. We have no subcommittee reports. This was the subcommittee report, so thank you very much. I will move us through here. And then next was the liaison process. Just as a reminder, we've each been assigned an organization to review and come back to the commission with your report. So if you'd like to add that as well to the long-range calendar, when you'd like to do that, after the first of the year is probably going to be the easiest time to catch any of your organizations right now. They're all very, very busy. It's fundraising time. So just as a reminder, and this is just a reminder of what the liaison, what the responsibilities are of the liaison. So, and then,
Can I ask, is there, for some of these agencies that we've worked with for many years or for several years, is there able to reference back on some of the subcommittee or commission presentations on some of that work?
so if we've got reports from previous agencies?
Yeah, or just some of the commission, their report outs from their visits and check-ins?
Well, this is a relatively new process. We've only been doing the liaison process for about 2 years.
We're gonna build it as we go.
Yes. So this was new, just a new opportunity, so.
I mean, it's probably in the report, because there's recordings of the meetings.
Uh,
You wanna-
That's true, and then, and so the agencies that you'll be reviewing are all funded through CDBG. They provide us with quarterly reports as well. So I can go back over the last couple of years and provide you with quarterly reports for your agency if that would be.
Great, and I ask because I have a little bit of time in the start of the year and I'm hoping to
Okay.
connect with the crisis nursery.
Okay.
Agreed to here, so.
I will go back and find those, and we'll get, for each of your respective ones, we'll get you the quarterly report so you can review. We're at the mid-year right now for our long-range calendar, so we will wait and review that after we get the other section completed too. And so I'll move us through here. They will have public comments related to that. And then I will provide you our update on what's happening with our affordable housing process. We don't have any new homes on the market as of yet. All of the, we've got 6 houses that are currently on the market. 3 of them have been on the market and will be out of the city's right of first refusal period by the end of December. And what that means is the home still maintains its affordability covenant, but the seller no longer has to sell it to someone that income qualifies. So they can sell it to someone that doesn't have to income qualify, but when that person purchases, they are made aware that the house has a covenant on it, it has to be affordable, and it has to be sold to, when the process starts, we have the right of first refusal to sell it to somebody that income qualifies. So we've got 3 homes that will fall out of the time period for our right of first refusal by the end of the year. They'll go on the market, and then the sellers will let us know if they have a buyer, and then we'll make sure that the covenant goes to the title company, so we maintain the deed restriction.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Is it possible to know how many of the houses that went on the market this, like, let's say 2025, passed that window, so they were sold to?
Yeah, I can tell you, as of now, we've had 4 homes that weren't sold to people on our list, but we've also had 4 homes that were. So we've had 4 of them that went to the regular market for sale.
Okay, so about half are.
About half of them, yeah.
And is that about typical other years?
This year's been a little unusual. There are a couple things that are, it's much more difficult to qualify. It's much more difficult for our folks that are on our wait list to actually get qualified for a mortgage. So some folks have had, they haven't applied, and then some of them, we've got a couple of homes that are two-story, and people aren't interested in two-story homes, so there have been a couple of reasons that people have not, on our wait list, have chosen not to kind of make an offer on some of these homes. But our wait list, we just did a big public push to make sure people understood that we had this wait list to get them qualified. We had 30 people on the list, and we now have about 45. So we're trying to add more people to the list, more people that have the potential to qualify.
So every house that goes on sale, there's potentially 45 people that
Yes.
could look at it.
Mhm. And what we attempt to do, just so we let everyone know that we let the waiting list know when a house becomes available. We try to stick to the first 8 people to kind of send them forward to go view the home. There was a new rule as of January of this year, where in order to even visit a home, you had to have a realtor. And the realtor was the one that has to make the appointment to be able to see the housing. So that's been a bit of a barrier, but we're working through that with some folks too. But we are doing our best to kind of market it more broadly so we get more people on the wait list.
And then, like, for example, for the 3 that are about to expire off of that list, have those already been offered to all the 45 people?
Yes, yes, yeah. And we go back and, make sure people understand these particular properties are still available. And folks are encouraged to get a realtor to go take a look. And they usually will let us know if this is a property that's something that they're interested in or not. But we do our best to try and get as many people as possible through it to maintain that right of first refusal period so we can get an income qualified buyer. But again, we've got 90 days to do that. That's it.
Do folks have to be pre-qualified to get on the list, or to be like, you're in the top 8 to be recommended, or do they get to see the home and then go through the qualification process?
No, we qualify you first to be on the wait list.
But look, I mean, for the mortgage, pre-qualified for like a loan approval,
Not,
basically.
not particularly, no, because, each property is unique. We encourage people to try and work with a lender in advance, and we've been referring people to an organization over in Sacramento called Neighbor Works, and they work with first-time home buyers to make sure that they have everything that they need to
Sure.
qualify. But it's really up to the buyer.
Do we know if people backed out or have data if they decided not to make an offer because they did or didn't get qualified in the first place? We don't, okay.
No, that's not what we typically find. And then as well, the amount that the seller can charge for the house is a cap on how much
Yeah,
the homes can sell for. So they usually know if it's something that's within their price range or not. It's usually whether or not the property is a fit for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that was, one of the questions I had was, do we have some sort of assistance around education? And it sounds like we do with this program, and that I remembered that was the case. And I'm just really curious, about maybe having more information about what it is that prevents folks from qualifying. It sounds like some of them maybe are not, the house itself is not a fit, but I'm wondering, like, what are the barriers for this group of people? And is it that they don't have enough down payment? Would the down payment assistance program help this group of folks to get into these houses? It feels like I don't know enough about like what is keeping people from getting in.
Yeah, and we haven't found that that's, the city's role is just to make sure that people income qualify. So your income qualifies you to apply for a home, but then once you start working with a mortgage broker or working with someone to qualify you for the mortgage, that's a whole different process. And we're not involved in that process. And we also, when an offer is accepted, you know, I may have a pre-approval for a home that says I can purchase up to this amount. But once you go to underwriting, it could be a whole different thing. And so we're not privy to, you know, where people are as far as falling out of underwriting or not qualifying. We just know that based on the information that we collect from them, their income qualifies them to purchase.
Sure.
But beyond that, at that point, once the offer is made and accepted, then it becomes a separate transaction.
And then I guess it makes me wonder about if there are any policies that cities are working on or presenting that is helping in this area.
And that's a good question. I don't know if they apply to the properties that are in our portfolio, but I can find out.
Okay.
And when you say the income qualify, I mean, the houses that always come to mind for me are on Green Terrace. I see those on the market all the time. And they're usually in the mid fours to kind of mid fives, hundreds. To qualify for that, you don't have like you could make minimum wage and technically you qualify, but obviously you will never pre-qualify for a home. So somebody could apply to this affordable housing program, but just be well below the income threshold to realistically ever apply for a mortgage,
And
correct?
that's usually what we check for, is to see, you know, once you submit your information to us, we ask for W-2s, we ask for tax returns, we ask for some very basic information.
But you don't basically say you don't make enough money that you're not gonna be able to buy a home. If somebody's just to buy a $400,000 home, you gotta make some money. You know, you're not making minimum wage to qualify for a loan. You don't check for that. You only check for the upper thresholds. Is that correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
We will check, we check for whatever information they provide to us. We will say, this is the sales price. We've looked at your income. We don't believe that you're qualified for this particular home, but it's not our role we just say, you make this amount of income based on this amount of income, you could qualify based on this price, and that's it. We don't tell them whether or not how much they may need.
So that they would qualify in that list of 45 or however many folks you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some could, yes, absolutely.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And that's something that we can, when we do our presentation, I can have our affordable housing manager come in, talk about the process, how we qualify people, what we tell them, and then at what point, once we've got a buyer that's qualified, how we move them on to meet with the seller and then start the actual process of being pre-approved and obtaining a mortgage.
Yeah, no, at one point I remember looking into some of those homes a few years ago when I would have potentially qualified, but ironically enough, the income was just below the threshold to qualify, but still too much to be considered affordable according to federal guidelines. It'd be paying like 50% of your take-home pay.
That's right.
Didn't make a ton of sense to make that purchase, but yeah. So I'd be curious to learn a little bit more when we go through some of these presentations about that for sale affordable. Just because you technically qualify for it doesn't mean that it's a good financial decision, or you can even get a mortgage for it.
That's right.
Director Bailey, do you find that more families refuse when the price is higher? So it's like, do you find that those homes that are falling, out of the city's first right of refusal are more expensive on average?
Not necessarily. It really is. A lot of it is location. It's how many family members are in the home, and is this a fit for our family construction? And it's just we're finding there are a number of different reasons where people may pass on a particular property that's come up. I know for sure with some of the townhomes, because they're multi-level, for some folks it's just not something that they're interested in. The number of bedrooms makes a big difference as well.
Yeah.
That's what we hear the most. But the pricing, because there's a cap on the sales price, it's usually, if you're going to qualify, this is where you would qualify.
Super interesting.
And if it does go out of that date and they have to offer it to a new person, do they still have to sell it at an affordable rate, or then they can sell it?
They still have a
at
max price that they have to sell it for. It's still the
Someone
same.
just gets a good deal.
But they, again, the restriction is still there, so that's tied to the property. So the buyer has to understand that, you know, when you intend to sell, again, we are looking for a qualified low-income buyer, and you can only sell at the max price.
Yeah, you can't really flip it, you're paying most of that
Right.
money to interest at that point, you're not really buying any equity if you're trying to make a quick buck on one of these houses, it's what, 2.5% or something equity cap?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, because there's a cap on how much you can sell it for, it's not like you're gonna purchase and go, well, what's the market selling for? I'm gonna sell for this. That's not allowed.
Yeah, you mentioned that you could prioritize this for one of the presentations,
Yeah.
like an item. I think that'd be great, because we talked about sort of
Understand it?
potential subcommittees coming out. And what I'm hearing is like there's maybe a potential for more data collection to better understand what are the holes in the program. So I'm wondering, I understand that the city's remit currently is like to really focus on that income qualification, sort of the gate to the program. Is there potential for more scope to that, where, you know, there would be multiple checkpoints with the clients, where you could have some, you know, survey opportunities to better understand, you know, sort of why did they leave the wait list, or why did they turn it down at home, or what went good when they actually went through the process?
Yeah, that's something that we can consider. If you know, folks stay on the wait list for a while, but it's something that I can talk to the team about, is what an exit would look like. If you turn down this property, would you complete this survey for us?
Sure, or and understanding the successes too, so.
Okay.
Do you know how many houses as a city are in this program? How many homes are there in total?
I can tell you next time. I can't remember exactly how many homes are in each of the different neighborhoods that we have. But I can definitely get you that information.
Thank you. Is there anything else on that?
Not on that, but I did have a different question. And just to circle back to the conversation that we were having earlier in the meeting about the winter shelter.
Yes.
The other waiting list, the one that is non-existent that we were talking about. So I just wanted to get, or just ask, you know, what your thoughts is for like why that exists. You know, sometimes, you know, there's this service refusal sort of idea. So I just wanted to get an understanding from your perspective about why you think there isn't a wait list.
So it often depends. We've got, like I said, the two types of sites. We have the congregate site where it's shared housing. Some people are not interested in a shared housing environment. And so that's why we often see people will turn that down. The non-congregate site at the hotel, we reserve those specifically for people that have, you know, the most need. So some folks just don't qualify to be in that particular environment. And we specifically reserve the hotel units at the request of Sutter Hospital and our mobile medicine teams, because it's often folks that have these medical care needs that really need to be prioritized for that service. So we do a really good job of making sure that our in-house community knows that it's winter shelter time. You know, if you're interested, you know, let us know so that we can start working with you. We make sure that they know it's available, and we also make sure that they know what other options are available too, that like the woodland shelter as well. Most folks we find want to, if they're here in Davis, they want to stay here in Davis. That's pretty much where that lies.
So like most things in services to unhoused folks, we had more options. That we probably see a higher uptick of people just sort of accepting and engaging with those services.
I wouldn't be able to say that because we often have a number of options for people to be connected to some level of housing or to be started working on housing. What what we find is that the type of housing that's offered is really kind of where people make a decision. If there's an option, if we had more hotel rooms, we could probably get more people that would accept a hotel room. But when we had more people in some of our hotel environments, when they're in that environment, we're also working with them to go, this is temporary, this is, temporary housing. What can we do to get you housing ready to transition you to something else? We have found that, once people are placed, we give them a couple of days to kind of acclimate and rest, because that's the biggest thing is, can I rest and get stable? Some people choose to work on services and some people just choose not to and will refuse. We've had folks where we placed someone and found housing outside of Davis that has been refused, or housing that's nearby that it's just not of interest.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant by a wider variety. If we had sort of, for that last scenario that you outlined, if we had something that was of the type that that person was looking for, but in Davis, they probably would have said yes to it, right? Or we have no idea, but I think it's likely, given why they said no to what was offered to them, that if something along the lines of what they were looking for was available, that they might at least be more interested, right?
Yeah, and I would be curious what that other option could be, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure what other options for housing there really is that are available, besides a congregate site, a congregate setting, or like I said, a temporary hotel room, or, the next step for us is really, can we get you into some kind of, there's permanent supportive housing that's available, is that something that's a fit for you? Those are really the options. When we do offer people, the third option that we've been talking to people about is our safe park site. And that's something that some folks have availed themselves of. But even those are difficult because, I may be in a vehicle, but it may not meet the criteria that's required. Is it registered? Do you have a license to operate the vehicle? Is it operable? There are other factors that kind of play into what people will accept. So,
Thank you.
I have a couple follow-up questions along the same lines as Commissioner Horton. I remember in previous years, you had essentially a triage protocol for the referral process. Is that in use this time around as well?
So when either people are referred by local medicine or they self-refer to either the respite center or to Pulse Place, we do an intake. So we get as much information about that person as possible, because what we're also trying to assess is, if we place you, what other kind of services can we get to you while you're stabilized in this place, in this location? So there is an intake process that happens. Once people are placed, and we are immediately working with, based on what they tell us, we're helping them to get maybe vital docs in place so that they can apply for other housing. We're looking at county programs to see if there's a county program that we might be able to refer them to for longer term housing. We're looking to see if can we connect you with maybe family or friends. Is there someone we can reconnect you and help you return to a place that might be more beneficial for you? That's all a part of once someone is placed. We're continually going out to work with them to see what's next, because these are all temporary placements, and folks understand that. And what we're trying to do is move you to the next level of care. So it helps that we've got really good relationships with the county, helps quite a bit. We've got connections with organizations that are called ECMs. They're through managed care plans. They have connections to CalAIM and other services that are available to folks, and we can get them to a case manager that can do even more in-depth assessment to see if there are other programs that may work for them. Once we start asking questions, we've had opportunities to place veterans who have a whole different system of care. We've had opportunities to place transition age youth into other programming. So the folks that are doing these assessments are really trying to figure out what happens for you next. How do we get you connected to something?
I appreciate that. That sounds like you're using the full power of the potential referral system. But I want to clarify, because I've got some questions from other neighbors and folks in town. When we say there's no wait list, and we say that it's through intake and by referral, is there no wait list because we're not physically creating a wait list, and instead we're referring them elsewhere, but we're turning them down because they're not a fit?
We
Or-
haven't turned anyone away.
Okay,
It's really,
no one's turned away.
no, we rarely have to turn someone away. There's always some place that we can offer to someone. We've often told people that prefer a hotel stay to say this isn't an option for you, but let's work with Pulse to see if what can we do to get you placed there, and what are the barriers for placing you there? What are the barriers for placing you either at Pulse Place or at Woodland? What stops you from accepting that as an option? So we do a lot of encouraging people to come indoors, but we also understand that people have agency and it's their choice. And we've got folks that this is not their choice to come inside.
Well, it's, thank you for clarifying that we're not turning people away. Does Woodland have space right now, or are they full?
They're not full.
They're not full?
No, they are not full. The Fourth and Hope Shelter has 100 beds. They have capacity right now for about 50 folks. That's their staffing capacity right now to serve about 50 folks, but they do have availability.
So they're below 50?
Yeah.
Really? Wow,
We're working with them, actually regionally, it's a conversation that we're having through our continuum of care.
okay.
How do we, what can we do to get them to capacity? What are the barriers that people face? Getting people there is a big barrier, so we're having conversations about how do we get people up to the shelter, and then how do we return them home once they've spent the evening there? Because,
Right.
you know, people want to come back to their place of work. So how do we get them there and bring them back?
I guess what I'm circling around with these questions is that, okay, if the Woodland shelter is below capacity and the motel is fewer rooms than previous years, but as far as I know, the number of unsheltered folks has not gone down on the street, then do we just have more people on the street overnight this winter because they're not taking these two other options?
Not necessarily, and we're actually seeing fewer people on the street this year than we
Really?
saw last year, yes.
When's
We're
our
trying
next-
to understand why.
Yeah.
Part of it is, a couple of years ago, there were big pushes in some of the other major metros to move people along, so we were seeing a lot of transit
Right.
through the city and in the city. We're not seeing as many people from out of Davis as we used to, is one thing. The other thing we're seeing is that we've got some folks that have been housed. Some of our chronic homeless, we've been able to place. So we're not seeing those folks anymore. But it's, for some reason, we are seeing fewer people. But the people that we are seeing are ones that are more chronic and more reluctant to come in.
Thank you.
Yeah, to clarify, I remember talking to the police chief maybe 2 or 3 years ago about San Francisco had something called Project Homeward Bound,
Yes.
which sounded very nice, but here's an Amtrak ticket, get off at whatever stop you want. San Francisco was obviously under a lot of national scrutiny. So you're saying some of it we don't know for sure, but we saw a big influx some
Yes.
winters
Mhm.
due to that, and we're not seeing that influx.
Yeah.
The folks we're seeing now are folks who've been here for a while. They're folks we know basically.
Yeah, not as many new faces, and
Okay.
one of the things that, you know, we have found that for folks that come from outside of the city, Connection to services is more difficult because you get your services in your last city of origin. So changing over your benefit from one place to another, there will be a gap in service while we get you connected. People have started to realize that, and they're less willing to kind of move around anymore. People are returning to some of their home places of origin. So there are just a number of different factors that we're seeing. We're trying to track what those are, and we maintain a database where we kind of keep notes in our homes management information system. So all of the providers that are kind of touching different people, we're kind of seeing what's happening with people. But there's a combination of people are being placed, people are staying put, and then we are really kind of down to the hardest to reach people right now.
When did we last do the count, and when does that happen?
Happens in January, and that was the other thing that's coming up. So our point in time count, HUD requires that we do a biannual census of our unhoused population. It's called the point in time count. It usually happens the last week in January, and that's where we try to get an idea of how many folks we're seeing that are living unsheltered, which means on the street, or in places not fit for human habitation. And then we also count the people that are actually in shelter. This is every 2 years is the one where we are working with folks that are living outdoors. So that's coming up at the end of January. Each jurisdiction kind of has a different process. But it all happens at about the same time. We conduct our count from 6 a.m. to noon on the 28th, that's Wednesday the 28th. So we'll be sending out our outreach teams to do that count.
Is there any need for like volunteers for something like that? Because one of the things that sort of came up in The Right to Exist, the film that I mentioned earlier in the meeting, was that Sacramento County also had a surprisingly low count the last time, but that sort of limited volunteer capacity was a part of that, so that's not a thing for us?
No, that's not, it's not, and we haven't seen that. We don't typically need a lot of volunteers because we just don't have the numbers of unhoused people that a large metro like Sacramento does. We're able to, it's really kind of two methods of counting. We send out our teams, we try to interview people. We ask them a series of like 10 questions so we can get a more in-depth understanding of what their experience is of homelessness. But we will also do a visual count, because if we see people that are sleeping in cars, we're not going to tap on their windows, wake up, can you answer a question? We work with people that have lived experience to kind of guide us to places where they think people typically can't. For people that don't want to engage, we will still do a visual count of them so we get those numbers. But we do a lot of work to encourage people to answer those survey questions, and we try to do that. We do some of it in the field. But we also have events at the Respite Center and at Paul's Place to encourage people to go there and answer these questions and incentivize them to do that. And we do that in each of the jurisdictions. So West Sac has a process, we have a process, Woodland has a process, the county works with smaller areas and incorporated areas to kind of capture those numbers too.
So I'm sorry, so Davis will take volunteers or not for this?
We don't typically need volunteers because we don't have much for you to do. And that's the big thing, is we don't have much for you to do. But we are talking to Paul's Place and to Respite. If we have, as we did before, if we do these events where we encourage people to come in, we usually serve food. And so we can always use folks to help us to serve and do those kinds of things. But we just
I thought you were going to say help eat, because
yeah, it's mostly to help serve and to kind of redirect people. Make sure that we're not double counting, because that's also a thing. We want to make sure we're not double counting. But really, because our numbers are so much smaller, we just don't have a big need for volunteers. But you can always, Sacramento is always looking for volunteers. They're much bigger jurisdiction, and they encourage folks to kind of join. And is that my update? I don't think I have.
update on respite, specifically just what's happening with the hours, how city management is going?
So far,
Yeah.
it's going great. We were able to maintain 2 of the Downtown Streets team staff members. So there was no real we were down for about a week, and that was about it. So there was no disruption in service. Clients were happy to see the staff that they had been working with are still there. The hours are the same, 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. They close at 2 on Wednesday so that they can do a little staff meeting. And then they also do a little event for the clients sometimes where they do something special for them. But we are maintaining the services and folks are still coming.
Has the plumbing issue been addressed?
So there's some infrastructure things that need to happen, but we are we're gonna hold until we can see what's the outcome for the recycling fee. But it's still functional. It is functional.
Have you seen a drop in the numbers at respite since Downtown Streets team left, or is it the same level of service being provided?
We're seeing fewer people, but when the community got the idea that there was some transition happen, some folks moved over they were going over to Paul's place, so we were seeing fewer people. Those people are now starting to kind of make their way back to respite.
All right,
That's my report.
thank you. I think that's it then.
I think so. I think just as a reminder, we are on the 26th. So note the date change. I'll make sure you guys are aware in advance. We'll make sure the public knows too. That's it.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Hopefully not needed. No.